Welcome to my channel. This is Bruce the Boss. Take two on my video of how Texas Governor Greg Abbott just signed an executive order for Texas 40, banning all mandated jab requirements of any entity operating within the state of Texas. This is take two because YouTube literally removed my video last night when I first initially recorded and posted it in real time within 3 hours of the executive order being made. And all I did in the video, was talk to the law itself. I read straight from his tweet on Twitter, which included, and I read that last line, which included a statement encouraging people to take jab, because this was not an attack on the jab itself, but rather just saying this is about personal freedom. Then I read verbatim from the executive order itself, which I'll be more than glad to put a link in the description box below. And I didn't talk about the efficacy of the jab itself and or criticize it, because you have the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, to do that. Check that video out. All I did was speak to the law and how it applied to me because of my position at work at my company, which I've spoken about that on two different videos recently within the past 4 weeks. You can go ahead and check those out as you like. And they gave me a strike for medical misinformation, which I appealed, but I assume is going to just be denied because it's probably just going to be handled by either some bot and or third party in another country that is just looking at words and said, oh, he said vaccine ban. Oh, that's not good, especially since, as you probably know, YouTube came out with an official position saying they're going to get even harder on any YouTube content that goes against getting the jab. And they're trying to prevent medical misinformation, but it really seems like they're trying to control the conversation. With that said, please subscribe to this channel to fight against that. Show YouTube that they do not control what it is we get to say, think, and or hear, especially so long as we're not spewing out any hate, so long as we're not talking about anything that is illegal and or would cause harm to any individual. Subscribe to this channel while you can, because I have been nuked before. And with that said, also find me on Twitter, find me on Rumble, find me on Odyssey, as I am on those platforms as well. I'll probably make sure I upload this content on there this particular video on there as well, so that if anything does happen, you'll be able to find me once more, especially as I try to recreate myself once again. I've been nuked and I came back resurrected. I can do it again. All right, because the revolution will be televised. You cannot silence all of our voices. That kind of take me off a little bit, because I literally only stuck to the fact that he banned it for the entire state, which I think is a great thing. And he did it in plain language too. He did not just limit it to any entity and or business that receives, for instance, state funds. He didn't just limit it to individuals who have some medical condition that will prevent them from getting the jab due to pre-existing conditions and or prior history with the jab, and or any particular condition that might elicit one of the rare adverse reactions that have been recorded on VAERS. Rare, but it does occur for certain people, and it could occur because of your condition. He didn't just limit it to those who have a religious exemption. Not that that really means so much, as we've seen NBA star of the Golden State Warriors, Andrew Wiggins, state that he had a religious reason for not wanting to get the jab, and yet was forced to, because his religious exemption in the state of California, or California, was denied. So you can't even look to that religious exemption as a guarantee, especially if you're any denomination of Christian, for instance, and be like, well, why aren't you getting it when this other Christian, when this Baptist or evangelical has gotten a jab? Where does it say in your Holy Scripture Bible? So you can't even rely on religious exemption. And if you're pregnant, you really can't rely on that either, simply because the CDC literally came out within the last 2 weeks recommending pregnant women get the jab, despite there not really being major testing from the beginning of a pregnancy to the birth of the baby to know one way or another. But they're recommending it because not knowing what could really happen with getting the jab, they are making the argument that getting COVID could be worse. That's the argument that they're making simply. So you don't have the argument, the luxury if you're pregnant as well. All he said is you have to have an objection to it. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be personal, your conscience, and or you could have gotten the virus and recovered from it, therefore having built-in immunity. Thank you, Israel study. And the video got removed for medical misinformation though. Like, really? But I think that's a good move by Greg Abbott. A little late though, because I kind of feel bad for those Texans who did not want to get the jab, but were forced to by their employer and or were pressured into it. Because when you look at the state as it is right now, only 51% of the state of Texas has had 2 doses of the vaccine, i.e. fully jabbed. That's roughly about 15 million out of 30. And only 60% of the state population has had at least 1 dose. That's not a very, very high percentage rate of the state when you compare it to other states like probably New York, California, and or especially Vermont. It's not especially high. That's a very, very, very high number of individuals who haven't received the jab, especially when you consider all of the students who may or may not have been required to some degree already by their local school. I know San Antonio School District is in battle in court with Governor Greg Abbott over certain mandates. So that does include a lot of Texans, but I just wonder, out of that extra 9% of Texans who only had 1 dose thus far, how many of them were forced to bend the knee because they're looking at their company making a lot of these rules, and or they're seeing what's happening in the White House and potentially what shoe may drop with OSHA, where they're like, oh crap, I don't have a choice. My own company, like I mentioned in a video I did last week, literally the management came out and said, y'all better get ready to do this thing. And y'all had until Friday of last week in order to put in for some sort of exemption. So I find that very interesting. I just think it was a little late for those who already bent the knee, because if they already got 1 jab, 1 shot of the jab, they might as well get the second. They've already gone down that rabbit hole as is, but it really sucks for any individuals that did not want to do it and felt forced to. But I do feel so this is an extra protection for someone like myself and our other Texans who have thus far held out. Shout out to Southwest Airlines for really helping to force the movement to go national to some degree, despite the fact that Southwest has come out publicly and said, oh no, this has nothing to do with any jab strike. Yes, it does. Go ahead and check that video out. I already spoke to that. But again, focusing on Greg Abbott's mandate, this is a huge, huge victory. This definitely, though, underscores the civil war or cold civil war this country is in, because you have much of the country going really hard one direction, and then you have others in the country going a very, very hard direction the other way. And this is also going to be interesting because, as I alluded to, thank you, Brandon, stated about a month ago today, that he was going to require or ask of OSHA, which hasn't even said jack yet to my understanding. And then again, feel free to correct me in the comments with a link stating otherwise from OSHA regarding a mandate on businesses with 100 or more employees mandating the jab. If that comes down from the federal level, well, right now, Texas has that protection. And we're actually still waiting, according to the executive order, until the state legislature does something. So Greg Abbott did request a special 3rd session of the Texas Congress, Texas legislature, state representatives, and or state senators to draft legislation to pass regarding this. And until then, his executive order holds up. And then we will wait on them to pass an official bill or official law, because not to confuse an executive order with law, although it is technically the law of the land as it stands right now. What will happen if OSHA drops that ball, drops that other shoe regarding the mandate? Because as we all know, federal law technically trumps state law, even though we're seeing a lot of states literally act in direct opposition of state law. You need look no further than San Francisco and much of California, as they ignore federal government laws as it pertains to illegal immigration. They buck it right in their face. We see right now the state of New York, literally, or the city of New York in particular, acting like its own individual country where you require certain immunizations just to enter into it and get in. So we see a lot of states already bucking the federal state. Look at Colorado with its, and many other states with its marijuana laws. At any point in time, the DA can come in and bust that up, but they haven't yet. We've seen a lot of states do their own thing. But what if the federal government does decide to push on this? What if OSHA does? That would be a very interesting battle that may make its way into the Supreme Court and could forever change the trajectory of this country. And that's probably where we're headed, a Supreme Court battle, if that does happen. But I wonder, and I kind of doubt, I actually honestly think that Biden only said that he was going to direct OSHA to do what he knows that they can't. Because I find it funny, at one point, not too long ago, he said that as president, he didn't have the authority to mandate masks across the country. And yet you somehow have the authority to mandate getting jabbed and putting something into your body, forcing tens of millions of Americans to put something into their body as opposed to just putting something over their body. Like, that doesn't really make sense. But I think that he realized, you know what, I really can't enforce that or really can't make OSHA do that. But let me threaten them to make them think that I can, so that these businesses that would like to go 100%, but right now know that they really, really can't, for many of their employees who are especially remote, they may require it of those who may, keyword being may, like my company does, require it for their employees that are going back into the office and or meeting with clients. But what about those who have completely committed to working from home? You really can't justify getting the jab right now unless if I do this and I kind of make it seem like I'm forcing their hand and making them be proactive in requiring and or making all of their employees, remote or not, feel as though they have to get the jab, so that when this shoe does drop from OSHA, which, you know, I'm pretending that it is when it really isn't, they can say, all right, we already beat it. We don't have anything to worry about. I think it was just a threat, in my honest opinion, to elicit that response. But, you know, we'll see, because if it does, it'll be an interesting Supreme Court battle. Like I said, while this video is still up, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment on this video, share this video. That's all I had to say. And that was that the jab mandate is not legal right now in the state of Texas, thanks to Governor Greg Abbott, who surprisingly beat Ron DeSantis to the punch as it pertains to, if I'm not mistaken, just a broad sweeping statement, but I can be wrong again on that. So if you are a Floridian, go ahead and let me know in the chat, and let's celebrate the fact that we are pushing for freedom of choice, freedom of decision. I'll support your decision whether you choose to get the jab or not. I think that should and always be a personal decision, should have nothing to do with your job and or job requirement, especially considering that there can still be an outbreak according to the CDC director herself. It doesn't stop necessarily transmission. It just supposedly protects against adverse reactions for you, the individual. So that's the video. Like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, Bruce the Boss, and I'm out. Peace.